Hello, and welcome to another virtual dose of vitamin Z, where we bring the Detroit Zoo to you. My name is Zahraa. I'm an education specialist for the Detroit Zoological Society, where we celebrate and save wildlife every day. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit more about the lions, not the football team, the animals, one of whom is sleeping behind me. Before we do that, let's take a look at some of our vocabulary words today. So today we're only going to be looking at two different words, poach and snare. And we're really going to be looking at human-lion conflicts and positive ways and a positive example of how a conflict like that was resolved. All right, so to learn about lions, we are traveling to Africa. And already we can introduce that concept of human and animal conflicts. So lions actually used to be found throughout the entire continent of Africa. But as humans expanded and lived in more and more spaces, they pushed the lion habitat down to now where they're only found in sub-Saharan Africa. Despite their king of the jungle nickname, lions actually don't live in jungles. They live in savannas and prairies and grasslands down in that area. So lions, again, have that nickname of king of the jungle. And while they don't quite live in a jungle, they are kings in a way. They have a court. So lions live in something called pride. So they're the only cats who live in these family groups or these social groups. And usually a male or two are in charge of the entire pride. They're the males residing over the entire pride. And what does it mean to be leader of their pride? Well, male lions are responsible for defending that territory, keeping everyone and everything safe, but they're not responsible for hunting. That's the female lions, the lioness's job. So female lionesses will go out and hunt while for animals to eat, while the lions stay behind and defends his territory and the cubs who live underneath his care. At about 2 years old, these male cubs grow up and they're adult lions, and they're pushed out of that pride by the females, actually, while female cubs grow up and join the pride. So let's see. And I don't know about you, but living with 15 to 30 other people would be very difficult. And I imagine it would be difficult too for the lions, except lions spend a lot of time sleeping. Lions sleep more than any other big cat at about 16 to 20 hours a day. So there's not really room for conflict within the pride if they're sleeping all day, right? Actually, the females raise the young all together. They all give birth around the same time, and they'll feed all the cubs, not just the ones they birthed. So it's a really positive living environment. When they hunt together in groups, and it probably has to do with all the time they spend sleeping. To prove the point, I actually went out to visit the lion habitat yesterday, and I found two of the lions who were outside yesterday, and both of them were asleep the entire time I was there. I was there for about 20 to 30 minutes, and Simba was first sleeping with his head faced away from me, and then I decided to capture some video for you guys. So here's a video of Simba doing what lions do best, which is sleep. And this is normal behavior. If I wanted to see Simba more active, I probably would have to go out earlier in the day. They're more likely to be active very early morning. This was around, I want to say around noon when I went out. So yeah, he was just sleeping the entire time. I didn't find Erin at the beginning, but then I spotted her on the other side and she was asleep, and then she got up and moved. So Erin shares the living space with Simba, and they share the habitat with Asha and Amira, two more lionesses who trade spots with Simba and Erin. So you can see her back here. She's moving around. She was asleep right over here. And then what I found is that she just got up to change her position and go back to sleep a little closer to Simba. All right, I have one more video. As I was walking away, I was like, okay, I guess I came too late and they're just going to sleep today. Simba got up and he was just changing his position. So now his head is closer to me. So they were just being very typical lions yesterday, falling asleep the entire day, right? All right, so now that we've seen a few of the lions who live here at the zoo, let's go back and talk about that lion-human conflict. And I want to introduce you to a lion who lives in Uganda. So this is Butcher Man. And you can see here that Butcher Man is missing a part of his foot back here. And he is an example of human-lion conflict. So remember those words I introduced right at the very beginning, poach, and snare. So poaching is when people illegally hunt animals, and snares are the devices people use to hunt those animals. In his case, the snare that hunted Butcher Man, or that poached him, was made up of the metal that's left over from a tire. So you take a tire, that like the kind you have on your cars, and you burn off all the metal. What's left is this really what's left is metal, and these metals can be turned into snares and are laid out all over to capture animals. Now, usually they're not meant to capture lions per se. They might be laid out so that they can capture some other animals. They're laid out by humans to capture other animals. Sometimes it's antelope because humans want to eat that meat. Sometimes they're laid out to capture elephants for their tusks. And sometimes they are laid out for lions, either for parts of the lion or to keep lions away from their farms. In any case, what ends up happening is these endangered animals are stepping into these illegal snares that are laid out in national parks and are causing injuries. And injuring an animal like Butcher Man here actually has a rippling effect. So Butcher Man is the leader of his pride. So that means all the cubs in that pride belong to Butcher Man. And his job is to defend that pride and protect it. With an injury like this, he's at a disadvantage and can no longer protect his pride as effectively as he normally can. And that means another lion can come in and force Butcher Man out. And what ends up happening then is that new lion wants to make sure that the new cubs are all his. So he'll actually go ahead and kill all those cubs. And when that happens, you're not just losing one lion, you're losing an entire generation's worth of lions in that pride because of a human initiated incident. So the only way to solve these issues is to make sure that the community is the one that's deciding all the decisions that need to be made. So why are these snares being put out? What is the reason for it? And how do we meet the needs, or how does the community meet its needs? How do these humans meet their needs and make sure that the lions and the elephants and the giraffes and the other animals are also still able to meet their needs? And this is where Butcher Man's statue came from. So this is a piece of art that's here at the Detroit Zoo, part of our permanent collection. And you can see here that it's actually made up of all the snares that were collected from a national park in Uganda. It was put together by people from that village who became artists and who repurposed the snares in a more positive way. So the initiative is called Snares to Wares, and it came about from within the community itself. They realized that people weren't hunting these animals just because. They were doing it to serve a purpose. They needed a way to provide for their own families, and that might include harming animals to get to that in order to survive. So how do you solve that? And one way to solve that is to make sure that you're paying people not to put out snares, but to remove them. And that's what happened at the beginning. And these snares became large piles that eventually made their way back and had to be collected again. Artists got involved and they saw a way to make money from these snares that better serve the community. So these snares were, so people in the community who were first used to lay out the snares were now able to become artists and create these statues and sell these statues to earn a living. And they no longer need to put out snares in order to survive because they have this way of providing themselves with a living. And this is an excellent example of how humans can provide for themselves in ways that celebrate and save animals instead of hurting them. And they're actually, these wires are actually the inspiration for today's activity. So we all have these lying around our house, whether we use dry cleaning a lot or not. I don't know how. I have a lot, even though I don't really dry clean all that much. So today's activity is a challenge to all of you to find ways to repurpose these wire hangers in ways that help not harm the environment. So these cannot be recycled. Even if you're putting them in your recycling bin, when they do go to recycling plants, they just end up in landfills. In landfills, they either take up space, harming the environment, or they're actually just sharp and hurting animals. So what are some ways you can repurpose this in ways that help you and help the environment? So I have one way. I have some examples of supplies that you'll need for this. So you'll need your recycled wire clothes hangers. You'll need some wire cutters to bend and twist the wires. And you'll also need some craft supplies of your choice. Now I know what my weekend project is. I will be making this wreath. There's plenty of pine cones on the ground right now. And I have ribbon at home, so I'm going to be able to use my wire hanger to create a wreath. But there's a lot of different ways you can do it. And I'm excited to see what ways you come up with. And doing all of this not only gives us a way to repurpose what would be waste, but it also gives us a chance to practice our, put out some creativity at work. All right, so although you'll be busy crafting your wreaths and hopefully sharing them with me at education@dzs.org, I do want to give you a chance to take a lion nap. Hopefully you have some time to take a nap like a lion. In the meantime, thank you so much for listening. Be sure to check out all of our videos at detroitzoo.org. And thanks again for watching.